The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Window World of Western Mass, a local family-owned and operated complete exterior remodeling business offering windows, siding, gutters, and more. windowworldofwesternma.com.
Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Police Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte. Later in the show, Megan Burke and Brianna Wales-Thaxton of the Community Foundation about the upcoming second Western Massachusetts Racial Equity Summit.
And with Kathy Martin and Rania Kafuri of Glen Meadow about how you can nominate someone over 60 in your community for their second Age of Excellence Awards.
With all these seconds, our first is actually kind of a bummer.
And it's a bummer for science, which is even worse somehow.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
Time for some more kitchen table astronomy with Hampshire College astronomer Dr. Salman Hamid, Mr. Universe at your Amherst kitchen table. And while we wanted to talk about cool things that we're seeing in outer space like dwarf planets, we, like so many other people, are forced to talk about the big, beautiful budget. But before we do, some local astronomy. Northern Lights, again last night, but only through an iPhone. So luckily my son Enzo was with me and was like, Dad, look through my iPhone. My iPhone won't do it. His iPhone does it. So I got to see him again. It was
What time was that?
12:15 a.m.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to complain about it. Why you didn't call me? Because last couple of times I called you.
Me, all right. I didn't want to call you at 12:15 a.m.
Yeah, no, I did actually go out before going to bed with my dog, sort of like trying to take him out. I did look up because I knew that there could be northern lights, but there were clouds, and I did not go with the iPhone thing. So
here's the thing: it's lame when you have to look through your iPhone to see them. It's awesome when you see them with your naked eye because you feel like you're really experiencing them. However,
which we did last year.
Which we did,
and that was amazing.
It was amazing. But most astronomy, that's exactly what it happens. You have an X-ray telescope or an infrared telescope, can't see that stuff with your eyes anyway. So why not look through an iPhone? It's all the same.
But it's still a chance for northern lights next couple of days. So
yeah, take that iPhone out there or whatever type of smartphone that has some sort of night vision on it. Sometimes it'll pop up right away.
And hopefully with your eyes. Take your eyes with you.
First try your eyes and then try your phone. The reason I was up so late is because I was at my friend's weekend-long video game party. And one of the nights spent over an hour debating about the existence of aliens. So that's another moral. Everything I learned from you, I was like, give me one shred of evidence of one single-celled organism, living or dead, anywhere else from Earth, and I will believe that there's a huge government conspiracy. People have dedicated their entire lives to find one dead cell. I'm not going to believe it.
I mean, you would say, well, NASA or NSF or the President of the United States, you can believe them. The problem is that I just read, that was the news in the New York Times. So there are all these variations to that about the next thing that I'm going to say, that President Trump is promoting the conspiracy theory that Biden...
Oh, it's a clone.
Is a robot.
Clone and robot.
Clone and robot.
Real Truth Social post.
So, I think the alien stuff is still far more believable compared to
That's true. If anybody was going to disclose a secret government program about aliens, it would be the current president.
But there are mysteries, and I wanted to bring up a really fascinating object that astronomers have detected, and we have no clue about what it is. There is a class of objects which have been discovered in the last couple of years, and those have been discovered through radio telescopes. And so, again, this is not something that you can see with your eyes.
You don't put your eye on the lens of a telescope and look and say, hey, what's that?
And so these are objects that are in our own galaxy. So of course there are in other galaxies as well, but they've been detected in our galaxy, and they vary in brightness. They have pulses. Now, we have talked about many times before objects like pulsars, that you can have pulses many times a second, but these newly discovered variable stars, these pulses that are coming from, are in about 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and the latest one that they discovered is the 44-minute pulse. Now, that's a little weird because we don't know what would be producing it. So that was already a mystery. These are called long-period transients, so LPT. But then Chandra X-ray telescope, which, as the name suggests, looks in the X-ray universe, it detected a same pulse from one of the radio objects. And in fact, what they discovered was that the X-ray variability matches the radio waves, meaning to say it is also pulsing in the same way every 44 minutes. So basically, this object becomes active for 2 minutes every 44 minutes.
And not only active in X-ray, but active in radio waves as well.
Right, and so this is something that we have never seen before. This is the first time, and we don't know what it is. This object is about 15,000 light years away.
So every time that 2-minute pulse happens that we see right now, it left that, whatever it is, 15,000 years ago.
That's correct. And we also are seeing that it is changing. It has gotten dimmer in the last 6 months or so. We have no clue what this object is. But this was a long way of coming back to a sad part.
I know, we got to the fun, exciting science part. Now back to the big, beautiful budget.
The total budget has been released, and NASA and NSF funding is there. So Chandra X-ray Observatory, it is one of the 4 great observatories, which included Hubble Space Telescope, which revolutionized astronomy. I was an undergraduate when it was launched, and I think I was amongst astronomers one of the first generation of astronomy students who saw the transition happen, who saw the revolution take place, where with Hubble Space Telescope, you could actually see fine details of these nebulae, which you might have, everybody have seen these images. For example, the Pillars of Creation, for example, that's just one image. But there were so many others. And it just transformed astronomy. Hubble Space Telescope is still operational. And so James Webb Space Telescope is, of course, the next generation telescope from Hubble Space Telescope. And James Webb works in the infrared. There was a reason why astronomers picked infrared, because they wanted to complement the kind of discoveries that have made by Hubble Space Telescope. In the same way, Chandra X-ray Observatory works in the X-rays, and it has been around since early 2000s, and it has been extremely crucial because it complements the other things, the other wavelengths, the other light that you are seeing, but this is also in space. And if the proposed budget goes through, and I should again emphasize that this is the budget that has been proposed by the White House. It hasn't been approved. It has to be approved by the Congress. If it gets approved, Chandra X-ray Observatory, that will get canceled. But not just that. So NASA budget will have about 25% cut. So it will go from about $25 billion to $18.8 billion. But that's the overall NASA. If you look at it more closely, for the science missions, like the Chandra X-ray Observatory, for example, would fall under science missions. James Webb Space Telescope and others fall under the science missions. Over there, you have almost a 50% cut, 47% cut from 2025. If it goes through, the estimate is 40 science projects are going to be cut. And that includes, for example, Mars Sample Return Mission that has been in the works, several Earth System Observatory Program, Mars Odyssey that has been orbiting Mars. There was another mission, MAVEN mission, that both of those are orbiting Mars. They are going to be decommissioned. Again, future plans to collaborate with others. For example, European Space Agency, there are missions that NASA actually works with. For example, Rosalind Franklin Mars rover mission, that is going to be canned. And then 2 missions to Venus. And for our local connection, Professor Darby Dyer.
Yes.
She just retired from Mount Holyoke, but she is in charge of one of these missions. Well, both of those missions are supposed to get canceled from there. There are spacecraft, Juno, for example, around Jupiter, that New Horizons, that has passed Pluto. It is going farther out. That is going to get canceled. And Osiris Apex mission. So you remember the mission that brought back samples from an asteroid, and it came back, dropped the samples, and then it is off to go to visit another asteroid. That is going to be canceled as well. I mean, these are superbly successful missions. These are missions that, again, you talk about what makes NASA NASA. Why are people all around the world wearing NASA shirts? Just an emblem also. Like logo shirts, or a cap and things like that. It's because of the success of missions like these. This is incredible. This is not about your politics or your religion or anything. This is just pure about curiosity. And it lifts you a little bit that, hey, at least for a little bit, humans decided that instead of focusing on war and kind of drones and all of that stuff, here we use this technology to try to answer some of our questions. But if you cancel that, and that's one of the reasons, justifications that is given, is that we want to focus just on very specific things. And so from that perspective, there is money for human space missions. I think that is still there.
Which is cool, but it does harken back to the early days of the space race where the Apollo missions were not science missions. They were flexing America's might to show what we could do in space before the Russians were going to do it. Now we're doing the same thing again. We're cutting the actual kind of ideals of Star Trek.
Yeah.
And trying to learn more about who we are and what else might be out there to once again just get in a race, this time mostly with China.
But I think there is a long-term disadvantage to that. If you stop focusing on things that are purely based on curiosity, fundamental curiosity, thinking about these things are the things that get people interested in science. You actually get this workforce in NASA or in universities because of the wonder part of it. I actually don't know what is going to happen with Musk and SpaceX because the person to lead NASA was supposed to be Jared Isaacman, who's a close friend of Elon Musk. He was confirmed for the Senate subcommittee, and he was set to be confirmed as NASA head on June 3rd. But then just suddenly, 2 days ago, his nomination was withdrawn by the president. And it is stated the reason given is the fact that he had donated before to the Democrats. But it's a little weird because apparently there are sources that are saying that he had actually disclosed pretty early on that yes, he had donated to the Democrats, but he also, by the way, gave $2 million to the Trump transition team. But his nomination has been withdrawn. So however you look at it, that is a big deal because suddenly somebody who was coming in, and I was a little bit lukewarm about that because after all, how many billionaires can we fit in into the government? But what I fear is what is going to be the alternative, and the reason behind pulling his nomination just a few days before he looked like to be a shoe-in to be the NASA head, and the tension between President Trump and Elon Musk. How is it going to manifest? But let's close in with more sad news, and that is about the National Science Foundation. So I have mentioned the NASA funding, and as you can see, a lot of the funding goes to astronomy. But for National Science Foundation, which funds your basic science, there is a proposed cut is 56% in the $9 billion budget. So again, you didn't have that much money to begin with, and you are cutting from $9 billion, you're cutting about 56%. And then what they expect is that the chance of success right now for an NSF grant is about 1 in 4, about 25%, which is tough. I mean, you have to really write good proposals because you only have 1 in 4 chance to be successful. With the proposed cuts, it's going to get to 7%. About $1 billion to increase diversity in the workforce. That's also going to be cut overall. STEM program from NASA, that is also going to be eliminated.
With all these cuts, and then also the cancellation of international student visas, the United States has ceded its place in the world as a nation that cares about furthering the sciences, it seems.
Right. And as a person of DEI,
You're one of those DEIs.
I'm one of those DEI. I mean, it's scary, and I empathize deeply with international students because I myself was one. I came to the U.S. over 35 years ago. I mean, as an undergraduate, I was 19 when I came here. And it is a stressful time. Everything is new. Everything is different. Even under normal circumstances, you have to make sure your status is there. You have to have your paperwork right and all of that stuff. And I remember post 9/11, coming from Pakistan, a lot of people from Muslim background, they were targeted. And many people don't actually know in terms of what had happened, but all males between the ages of 15 to 45, this was under President Bush, who were not on green card, but who were sort of like, on H-1B visas, work visas, or on student visas. They had to go and do a special registration at the time newly created Department of Homeland Security. And I was one of them. And it was not the most easiest experience. I was at Smith College at that time as a postdoc, Smith and UMass, but there was a lot of panic associated with that because people were worried about their status. Now, there are a lot of students being targeted, but I see a parallel, and I don't see the same kind of anger, I think, about the Chinese students being targeted. Just imagine the fear that is going through the Chinese students, and if I've looked at the numbers, it's like around over 250,000, 270,000 Chinese students right now are in the US. Secretary of State coming in to say, like, that we are going to cancel their visas if they have any connection to the Communist Party in China, which I don't know what that means. And so far, their record of being right has been actually pretty challenged. Even the robot Biden may have done better regarding that. But just imagine on the personal lives of students who are here, who have left their country. I mean, you're a first year. You're just finishing up your first year. You're a sophomore student. You are at UMass or you are at other places. I mean, I'm not even talking about graduate students or postdocs that fill up the US labs, science labs, which are going to be impacted by that. I'm talking about these undergraduates who are like 19, 20, 21-year-olds. And you have Secretary of State coming in to say, you know what, we may cancel your visa. They get an email and they give them 24 hours or 48 hours to actually get out of the country. That, apart from being cruel, is going to have a tremendous impact on US academia, US science as well. I get emails or questions from Pakistani students who are applying and things like that. And I'll be very honest, in the last couple of months, whenever this question has come up, I seriously ask them, why do you want to come to the US? And I do suggest not to come, because I don't want them to go through the same type of thing that other people are going through. It's sad. I mean, we're talking about killing curiosity by killing science, but we are also killing off why people came to the US. And that was not just the wonder of science, which for a lot of people is, it was for me, but also that it's an open society, that you don't feel threatened randomly, which can happen at other places. Not that US was a perfect country. I mean, I want to be clear about that. I mean, especially treatment of African Americans and others historically and today too. But I'm just saying that even that angle that people would think that, well, this is why I would go to the US, because I can express my views, I can be there and I can get educated. And there will be a system that once you are in there, because the system works, that you can actually go through the education and you have the ability to go into a postdoc or academia and so on and so forth, which I did. I benefited from it. Today, that doesn't exist. And I don't think if somebody is coming in, realistically, they should look at it. US would not be the place to come.
On the positive side of things, you might be able to see the northern lights through your iPhone tonight.
Yeah, well, and on the positive side, there is light out there, and that is coming from the north.
Okay, now to uplift our spirits with community as we find out more about the second Western Massachusetts Racial Equity Summit with organizers from the Community Foundation.
And next, giving those with lived experience of giving back their flowers. Now, as we explore how you can nominate folks for the Age of Excellence Award from Glen Meadow.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by the Handle Factory Community Clay Studio in Shelburne Falls, offering summer youth clay and art camps and classes for adults. Learn more at handlefactory.com. The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Eastworks, a community of makers, artists, restaurants, and services located in the Mill District of East Hampton, where community happens. Learn more at eastworks.com.
Do you know an awesome human in the 413 who is over the age of 60 and has not gotten their flowers yet? You are in luck, because Glen Meadow is currently accepting nominations for the Age of Excellence Awards.
The event honors older adults in our local community who embody the vigor, purpose, and contributions that come with age and experience. Whether pursuing new professional endeavors, serving their community, or showing extraordinary perseverance and excellence in other areas of life, these individuals deserve to be celebrated. And last year's 8 inaugural recipients ran the gamut from the first black firefighter in West Springfield to a 20-year reporting veteran at the Reminder to a leading sports official and more.
Glen Meadow is a nonprofit community in continuous operation since 1880. 18? Whoa, okay, yeah, no, definitely getting into that. 1884, providing a multitude of senior lifestyle options. And with us today to talk about the awards, their inception, and how you can nominate your own nominee for the awards are Dr. Kathy Martin, President and CEO of Glen Meadow, and Rania Kafuri, Vice President of Philanthropy. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
And we should mention that Glen Meadow is an underwriter of NEPM, which we appreciate, but is not why we are having this conversation. It's so that we can talk about the importance of honoring people over the age of 60 in this interesting way.
Especially at a community that has been around for 140 years.
Yeah.
And there's all sorts
years.
of 40 under 40 awards and stuff like that. And then the second you hit 41, you're like, ugh,
I guess I'm not.
blew it.
I guess I'm not valuable anymore. I guess I'll never win an award.
And that was the inspiration, actually. And actually, there's a local community who's doing 18 under 18. So it's another example of all of the ways that we appropriately lift up the promise and the potential of our younger generations, but we haven't done the same for those over 60, many of whom are still contributing in all sorts of amazing ways. So we wanted to take the opportunity before someone else had the idea to create a way to honor those over 60 for whatever they do that is legendary.
It's also awesome that you didn't call it a Lifetime Achievement Award, because that also makes you feel like, well, I guess I'm done now.
I guess I'm done
That's
with
right.
life.
Whose idea was it to honor folks this way?
It was actually mine.
Yeah,
Yay.
nice idea, Dr. Kathy Martin,
Well, I
President
mean,
and CEO of
you
Glen
are
Meadow.
leading the organization, so it seems fitting.
It is. And we have made a commitment at Glen Meadow that we want to redefine aging. And there just seems to be so much time now between the age of 60 and when you might make a decision to retire to when your journey ends, that people are finding all sorts of ways to continue to contribute. And this isn't a generation that is going into their senior years quietly. Many are finding new careers. They're finding ways to continue to give back to the community. And we wanted to find an opportunity or a way that we could highlight that.
That's Dr. Kathy Martin, who's the president and CEO of Glen Meadow. The award ceremony will be in September, but nominations are only open through the middle of this month.
Yeah.
Rania, tell us who makes the decisions once the nominations come in about who is going to be the recipients of these awards.
Well, we have an amazing panel of community members who volunteer their time to support the process of reviewing all the amazing applications. The nomination form is available on our website, glenmeadow.org. And if you prefer, you can also download the PDF form and fill it out and drop it off to us on campus. We can't wait to see who will be awarded. It is a very difficult process. And I will say that before I started working at Glen Meadow, I actually purchased a ticket and attended last year to recognize Ethel Griffin from Revitalize CDC, who is just an amazing person. And she does incredible things for our community. It was just such a joyful celebration to be there and recognize this community in this way.
Talk about the importance of making sure those nominations are from the greater community as opposed to within Glen Meadow.
Well, there's so much happening in our local area, and we are a vehicle. Anybody, any organization could have had this idea, and I'm just glad that it was Glen Meadow who came forward with it. So we're sponsoring it. It's not just for residents of Glen Meadow or those who are associated with Glen Meadow, because we recognize that there is excellence happening all over the place. And in some ways, the most challenging part of the nomination process is for someone to ask someone else how old they are. Like, are you old enough to be nominated for this award? And more often than not, when the answer is yes, the nominator will say, I had no idea they were that age. So, we're redefining aging, and we all have a different experience of age as well. We have some residents who are still working, and if it's happening within the Glen Meadow community, it's happening within the 413. We had over 40 nominations last year, which we were really pleased about. And there were some names that we recognized, but overall, those who were selected were people that we didn't know a lot about and who are going about their days doing their amazing things and not doing it to get any credit for it or not doing it for any public recognition, but it's just because it's who they are.
I do think it's amazing that there are 8 winners from last year, and I don't personally know any of them because it's a small world that we live in here, and usually they're usual suspects. And we're talking about the Age of Excellence Awards, which will happen in September, but the nominations for these over 60 change makers and movers and shakers in our area is going through June 15th. Glen Meadow is a nonprofit, and as Khalees mentioned, it started in 1884. Talk about how this fits into the greater, I guess, elder living, elder care world. And what is Glen Meadow? How is it different than some other places?
Glen Meadow has been around for 140 years. And we began as, it was called the Springfield Home for Aged Women, was the original name.
It was so old they called it aged instead of aged.
And we have certainly expanded our mission since then to welcome men. We have moved from the city of Springfield to Longmeadow and have expanded certainly in size and scope since 1884. But the mission remains largely the same, and that is to provide an exemplary experience for older adults. We are framing everything that we do around wellness, which is something that we know is critical for longevity, but it's also critical for happiness. It's about creating space for our residents to live the life that they want to live at whatever age they are when they move into our community. So it's not a nursing home. It's not a pure assisted living, which feels clinical in some ways. We have independent living and assisted living. One of our residents likes to say that we are a cruise ship on land. Uh-huh. that the emotion that evokes is pretty accurate. We're a really fun place to be, and it's a place where you can be as busy as you want to be. And we all know people who say that they're more busy in retirement than they ever were when they were working. And come over to Glen Meadow and you will see that happen within our walls as well.
All the fun, less of the terrible environmental impacts
of a cruise ship.
Yes, that's true.
And we're talking about Glen Meadow with two of the folks behind Glen Meadow, and I'm talking about the Age of Excellence Awards, and 60 is the age that you must be to be nominated for the Age of Excellence Awards. I would like to think that 60 is not that old, as
get
closer and
now
closer.
We start to think like, wow, that's not that old.
Yeah, but perceptions of age and what it means to be older and to age has changed, even in my lifetime. I mean, like 60, when my grandmother was 60, that felt old.
Absolutely.
Now, like some of my good friends are very active and are 60.
Right.
Have you witnessed this change, and what do you think is behind it?
And did that shift for you post working for Springfield College, where you're seeing a pile of students who are at the opposite end of that age spectrum?
Yeah, I remember my father's 40th birthday party, actually, and it was black balloons and a cane and over the hill.
Right.
And how we have internalized age is changing. We have seen how it plays out in advertisements for products or retirement savings and financial advisors. You know, it's no longer how are you going to pay for your retirement home? It's how are you paying for that next adventure and where do you want to go next? And it is impacting our residents at Glen Meadow. The most popular program that is offered at Glen Meadow is our morning exercise class. This is a group that wants to stay active. They recognize the importance of physical activity to longevity. And it is one of the ways that we have been able to extend our lifespan is by the research around exercise. The ACSM, the American College of Sports Medicine, coined the term exercise is medicine. And it's true. The more preventative therapies that we can do as individuals, the more 60 will feel young. So you asked about the difference between the residents that I'm working with now and Springfield College. Well, Springfield College, who has a mission around spirit, mind, and body, that it's all about wellness. So it's applying some of those same principles to a population who happens to be at the opposite end of the psychosocial continuum. We're not asking them to do anything they don't already want to do. We're finding new and exciting ways for them to engage in activity and to find new ways of exploring their own interest in various dimensions of wellness.
And I would say that it just happens that they are over the age of 62. Everything is so much a personal journey. And I feel that access and opportunity are something that should come at every age. And so we really have that kind of an informed culture on our campus in the sense that all of our programs are available for everyone. We want to lift up also our connections to the region, just thinking about many of our residents move here from other places in the country, whether to be closer to children who live in this area or, for other reasons, having Western Mass be a retirement destination as well, being able to connect throughout the larger 413 and share all the great things that we have in this region with this population for, cultural outings, educational opportunities. I mean, it really is endless. And so everything really is a personal journey for us at Glen Meadow.
And how does this landlocked cruise ship of elder care navigate seas of budget cuts that may affect their residents and programming? We'll find that out and more when we hear from Kathy Martin and Rania Kafuri of Glen Meadow.
After which, CEO Megan Burke and Vice President of People and Culture Brianna Wales-Thaxton of the Community Foundation will tell us more about their upcoming second Western Massachusetts Racial Equity Summit.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 at 8 p.m., and maybe the consonants will come back.
We're speaking about the Age of Excellence Awards through Glen Meadow, a living community in Long Meadow, with Dr. Kathy Martin, the president and CEO, and Rania Kafuri, who's the vice president of philanthropy of this nonprofit. We're hearing a lot about the so-called big, beautiful budget and cuts to Medicare and Medicaid. If this budget were to pass in the form that it looks like it is going to be proposed in front of the Senate, would that have major implications on the community of Glen Meadow and people's ability to be in a community like Glen Meadow?
Glen Meadow is a bit different than many other senior living communities. We are a private pay organization. So while many of our residents benefit from Medicare and may impact their monthly incomes, the wider impact of some of what is happening in Washington, D.C., we feel a little buffered from that. But we are certainly cognizant of the impact for all seniors, and the big, beautiful bill will narrow options for so many seniors that will have downstream effects that we don't even know about yet. I worry about those who have different levels of resources and different degrees of freedom to be able to make decisions about where they will spend their retirement years. And I don't think that that's getting enough attention as part of the conversation around our current political atmosphere, including the suggestion that caps are going to be placed on giving and questioning about nonprofit status, and it will just make it harder for all of us to do what we do and to give back to, in our case, a population who has spent their majority of their years giving to us. Many of our seniors have limited income as it is, and we don't need to limit it anymore.
You're relatively new to this position.
I
You've
am.
been there for 2 years, and a year in, you got this award system set up. But the changes happening all around, even if you are buffered from that, might affect what you want to and get to affect in Glen Meadow. What are some changes that you are still looking forward to putting through here at Glen Meadow to make people's lives more comfortable and more independent?
We have an incredibly bright future. And I came into an organization that has been incredibly well led for many, many years. We have decided as a leadership team that one of the important shifts that we wanted to make was have it be less about what Glen Meadow provides to our residents and more about the experience that they have while they're residing with us. So, I could go back to the cruise ship analogy, and you could be your own cruise director. You could be your own Julie McCoy for the population among us who knows who that is.
It's exciting and new.
And it's all waiting for you on board. No, we wanted to make it less about what we do for you and more about what kind of retirement do you want to have. So one of the areas where we are spending a lot of time, and it's something that is the perfect intersection for me, is intellectual engagement. We have a group of residents who want more cultural outings, who want more speakers coming in, who want more access to the great colleges and universities that we have in our local area. We also know that's something that's going to be increasingly important for the baby boom generation, who will be our next generation of residents at Glen Meadow. So we're working on some really exciting things around intellectual engagement, including launching a speaker series in the fall that will welcome any number of local experts to come into Glen Meadow and talk about what they're passionate about. Part of my role in this first year and a half was to increase Glen Meadow's visibility. And Age of Excellence is certainly part of that. But this is such a dynamic organization that we want to invite the community into Glen Meadow as well. So there will be more programs that are open to the public when we have some of these speakers come in. And it's a bit of a way to demystify this process as well, because it's not something that you go through until you're in it. Mm-hmm. It's a new language for families. It's happening sometimes in a time of great stress for families. So we want to create this relationship with those who might not need Glen Meadow until 10, 15 years from now. We are both ready to move in now.
Yes.
Yeah.
By the way, there are so many advantages to a community like Glen Meadow because you don't have to worry about maintenance. You don't have to worry about shoveling the snow or what do you do when the water cooler dies at 3 o'clock in the morning. And there's a peace of mind that comes with it. But we recognize that the generation who will follow those who are currently living at Glen Meadow fundamentally want some different things. And so we're trying to be out ahead of that curve and see around the corner a little bit to put some things in place that will make it even more attractive for prospective residents to make the decision to move into our community.
Not to bring capitalism into the conversation, but what do the winners of the Age of Excellence Awards get when they win?
They get a really great trophy.
It's very beautiful.
Sweet.
That is excellent. It's the Age of Excellence Awards. It's through Glen Meadow, which is located in Longmeadow. And you can nominate anybody over 60 in our community through June 15th by going to glenmeadow.org. And we will see in September, maybe we'll get to meet some of the honorees.
Yeah.
Have you back later this year to meet some of these excellent folks who are living their age of excellence over the age of 60.
And find out what makes them so excellent, as Bill and Ted would say.
Be excellent to each other. I think about Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure every single day of my life.
That's why I brought it up.
Yep. Dr. Kathy Martin, President and CEO of Glen Meadow, and Rania Kafuri, the Vice President of Philanthropy. Thank you so much for telling us about these awards. And again, June 15th, glenmeadow.org.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
And again, we acknowledge that they are an underwriter, but it's a pretty cool program. And now to learn more about broadening our definition and community with the second Western Massachusetts Racial Equity Summit, or Equity in the 413 from folks from the Community Foundation.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Northeast Solar, offering solar options, energy security, and solutions for the local community. Learn more at northeast-solar.com.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. The Community Foundation, in partnership with 11 other organizing partners, is holding the second upcoming Western Massachusetts Racial Equity Summit, a gathering designed to inspire dialogue, action, and accountability across the 413 on June 12th.
With us to explore the event's offerings are Community Foundation CEO Megan Burke and Vice President for People and Culture, which is a cool vice presidential title, Brianna Wales Thaxton, to help us see how equity in the 413 is shaping up to be an even more powerful event than the inaugural event in 2023. And lo and behold, you both came in wearing the same shirt, which would be gauche if it were the Met Gala, but is perfect for the Equity in the 413 Racial Equity
I
Summit.
also dig the Do the Right Thing font.
Yes.
That it is made of.
It feels like the Spike Lee movie.
Yes, very much.
Do the right thing. So let's talk about the Equity in the 413 Summit. This is the second one, but there wasn't one last year. Is that right, Megan Burke?
Yes, indeed. First of all, thanks very much for having us. We're excited to be here, and we're really excited for the summit. So we did, in the fall of 2023, have our very first ever Western Mass Racial Equity Summit, and it was very exciting. We had a great turnout. We were so pleased, and we decided we needed more space. So whenever you need more room to talk about equity, you have to change things up a little bit around here. And we found that some of the best spaces were at our local colleges and universities, and the best time to hold a summit is when college is not in session.
Smart thinking. They've got all these giant rooms and nobody to populate them with. Yeah, and I do remember people kind of a buzz about the event last time. So where was it the first time?
The first time we were at the Sheridan.
Okay, and so it was just it was right downtown, so people were coming in and out of this building and then going over to that building.
They were.
And so now where is it going to be?
It's going to be held at Westfield State.
Cool.
There's a lot of great reasons why we are holding it there. We think it's a pretty central location for all 4 counties of Western Mass, so not quite as far a drive for the folks who are coming from the Berkshires. They're making the entire campus available to us. There's plenty of parking. It's pretty convenient off the Mass Pike, but also I think that there's a pretty long history of inclusion and equity and diversity at Westfield State, and we're really going to celebrate those origins. And Brianna can actually tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes, please.
Absolutely. So through this process, I just have to name that President Thompson and her whole team has been so incredible, very supportive. And I really didn't even know the rich history that Westfield State University had dating back to the normal school as the first college and university to open their doors wider to women and formerly enslaved people. And so I've been really excited to learn about that history and to have them host us and celebrate and support us as we've been going through this event planning process together.
So cool.
I didn't know about that history either, but maybe that'll give us something to go look more deeply into. I'm sure you know the right people there to talk to about the actual history of Westfield. And now we're bringing it into the 21st century in 2025. And in 2023, when the first inaugural summit happened, it was a very different political climate. People were very excited about incorporating DEI into their programs and into their schools. And now people are being threatened if they want to include equity and inclusion in their programs.
And or punished.
Yeah. Be they schools or even some, businesses and enterprises and nonprofits, as the Community Foundation is. So talk about the decision to do this, continue to do this in 2025, despite the rhetoric against diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah, so I think that we had this plan before that. So I just want to name that. We were going to do this second summit. We knew as we started the planning process that the climate that we were dealing with when we began our planning versus the climate we might be in when we launched the event could be really different climates. And I think it just adds to the urgency and the need for us to continue to move forward and to name that we support advancing racial equity and that we know that our community has a history of doing this work and wanting to continue to do this work. And they have been showing up for this event along the way, and there is no less energy or enthusiasm for equity in the 413 this year than there was in 2023. In fact, I would say there's more enthusiasm and more commitment this time around.
I would also just quickly add that I think that in addition to sort of the continued commitment to want to advance equity and inclusion, folks really are looking for really concrete tools that will help them navigate this particular climate, help them know how they can talk about the work that they're doing in this area, what their rights are. We're really excited that the Massachusetts Attorney General's office is going to be offering workshops that do clarify what is legal. So, I think there's almost a climate of people self-censoring themselves because they're concerned about the risks, but we want to make sure nonprofits, businesses have clear information about what the real risks are so that they can push the envelope as much as possible, continue to do the kind of work that they want to do and feel protected and safe in doing so. So that's going to be an important part of the conversation.
That's a pretty good segue, and not to launch too far into the weeds, but the summit is a collection of workshops and classes done by the community and various other organizations under this topic of racial equity. So what are some of the workshops that are going to be offered in this second iteration of it?
Yeah, so we have 37 unique workshops
That's
offered
a lot
that day.
for
It's
one
a ton. Yes, across 4 sessions. We are hoping that there will be a small enough group for one of our goals of the summit is to build connections. So if you have small enough groups in each of your workshops, you can build those relationships and take a little bit of time to do that. All of our workshops balance. And it's one of the things I'm most proud of about the event is that there are places to connect to joy and celebration in this work as well as self-care. And so we have sound healing as one of our workshops. We also have workshops that center intersectionality. And so we have a workshop called Combating White Silence in Queer Spaces. And so I hate to name any of them without naming all 37 because I think they're all going to be fantastic.
That's what the internet's for.
Exactly. Yeah, so I think people will find something that can help them push themselves and take care of themselves all in that day.
How many more workshops is this from the first one? Just to have more of a 30,000 foot view of your growth into this second version of the summit.
It's about double in terms of unique workshops.
That's awesome.
Wow. Yeah. And it's kind of like a music festival, right? You have to kind of choose what course you're going to go. You might have to miss some bands.
You have to make some hard decisions.
Yeah. So the way the schedule is laid out, it makes it seem like you're going to have to pick and choose. So who are you attracting to this? Is this open to just individuals interested about this? Is this for people who run a business and would like to continue despite the rhetoric?
Or other nonprofit organizations who want to do better?
All of the above.
All of the above, for sure. We'll have college students in the room. We'll have people who run small businesses, people from the public sector, private sector, and nonprofits. And it's really meant to go across all industry areas.
We're speaking with the Vice President for People and Culture for the Community Foundation, Brianna Wales-Thaxton, as well as the CEO of the Community Foundation, Megan Burke. And I've said many times over the years, Community Foundation is like the do-good Illuminati, where they have all these funds that they allocate to all sorts of different causes. People apply to all sorts of different grants full disclosure, the Shea Theater, where I'm president of the board, has had grants from the Community Foundation for as many years as I've been involved with it. How and why is this something that's important for the Community Foundation to be behind? How is this part of your overall mission?
So in 2020, we adopted a new strategic vision that said, with the entire foundation's weight, with all the tools at our disposal, we want to advance equity and opportunity for all residents of the 3 counties we serve, Franklin, Hampshire, and Hampden County. And we started to think about all the number of different ways that we could do that, whether that's making sure that our scholarship programs really consider the barriers that different students face and make sure we're reaching the widest range of students that might benefit from those, making sure our grant programs were also aligned with that vision and thinking about access to those programs, thinking about our own internal procedures and the way we hire and the way we onboard folks. But we started thinking about what else can we do in the community? And we know that as a community foundation, we have the ability to bring together people who might not necessarily come together in other spaces. We certainly have, lots of connections in the nonprofit community as someone who makes grants. We also have a lot of relationships with colleges and universities because of the work we do around student success and the scholarship programs. But we also have lots of partnerships in the public sector. And so we see ourselves as really not neutral in that we don't have our own values, but we are sort of an open space where we can bring people together to have difficult conversations. And we recognize that this was a topic where we could bring people together that wouldn't necessarily come together, and really think about what else can we do in this space. I don't know if you want to.
I would just add that we knew we can't do it alone. And so that's where the organizing partners really come into play. So we started with 9 organizing partners, developed really organically, started meeting every 4 to 6 weeks, literally from the start of, what do we call this? Is this at a conference? Are we going to have 50 people getting together and talking about this? What are we doing? To the naming and the purpose and the iterations that we've done. And we have continued to meet, and we've added organizing partners every 4 to 6 weeks since October of 2022. So this is a committed group of folks, and I'm happy to be working alongside them and that the foundation's able to leverage resources for this.
And the name you settled on is Equity in the 413 Western Massachusetts Racial Equity Summit, which I'm reading off both of the shirts of CEO of Community Foundation Megan Burke and Vice President for People and Culture Brianna Wales-Thaxton. It is happening on June 12th at Westfield State. Tons and tons of different conferences, and open to anybody who is interested in this, either personally or professionally, to bring into their workplace. And even if you can't make it to the summit, the website has resources, racial and health equity resources, as part of it. Can you talk about broadening the perspective into the digital sphere for this kind of thing?
Yeah, so we worked, actually the organizing partners were formed out of a group that was looking to create some of those tools. And so we've really partnered alongside the Public Health Institute of Western Mass to work towards creating those resources. And they're housed on their website and linked through our website so that people can continue to access those resources. Also, this beautiful branding that you see right here is then also branding that is on other events that are happening throughout the region across the year so that folks know where they can continue their learning and continue to participate in the summit in new ways and with folks that were there alongside them.
So it's more like the summit is the summit, but the classes and the practice are going on year round.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
At the last summit, everyone who was there made their own personal commitment at the end of the session, which they shared with a partner. They didn't have to share it publicly, to continue the work afterwards and to think about what they had learned and how they could apply it.
Yeah. Or rather, that the summit is like the top of the mountain, but every year round, people are walking around and doing the classes and the rest of the work.
I like taking that metaphor even farther.
That's the metaphor I meant to make.
That's a great one. I like that.
Instead of saying the summit is the summit, of course the summit is the summit.
And we're talking about the Equity in the 413 Massachusetts Racial Equity Summit presented by the Community Foundation and many other partners.
Really quickly, talk about bringing art into this, because I think the way that art is included in this is something that we've talked about, like making art for yourself in a way that is equitable to everybody, but not everyone would see that way. So talk about making art an important part of the summit and what it brings.
I'm so glad that you asked me that question. It's one of the things I'm most excited about this year. So I feel like you cannot talk about social justice and equity without talking about the arts and the liberatory practices that comes from the artist community. And so to be able to offer live music production as well as a live mural that will be created on the day of that's just capturing the vibe from the summit is really, really, really beautiful, I think, and one of the things I'm most excited to see.
That's excellent. And there are, as you mentioned, twice as many of these talks that are happening at this summit as the last time. And you can find out all the information on how to get tickets. Is it free and open to the public? Is there a fee or?
It's a pay as you can sliding scale.
I figured.
Anyone can come and pay nothing if that's what they can afford.
Right. Such is the way of the Community Foundation. And you can find out all the information and what is happening when at their website, communityfoundation.org. It's the Equity in the 413 Western Mass Racial Equity Summit, and it is coming up in just a couple weeks. A little over a week. Yeah, June 12th at Westfield State, and we have been joined by the CEO of the Community Foundation of Western Mass, Megan Burke, as well as the Vice President for People and Culture. Again, I love that title. Brianna Wales Thaxton to tell us about this. Thanks so much for coming in today.
Thanks for having us.
And again, communityfoundation.org for more information on that.
Mm-hmm.
I want to remind everybody that this Saturday is the NEPM Asparagus Festival, and we want your asparagus recipes. So if you have a particularly delicious asparagus recipe, email
way that
us.
you like to eat it.
thefab413@nepm.org, like Maureen Scanlon did, who says that they have already had asparagus on toast with white sauce 5 times this season, as Wally Sykowski, our farmer friend, asparagus leader, mentioned on a show last week. So,
Also very good.
thefab413@nepm.org. Tomorrow, we'll head to Beaumont's Berries to chat with Devon Whitney Deal about the incoming strawberries, the next phase of the agricultural season, and the innovative approach to what they harvest.
And Pride Month has begun, so we'll hear from folks from Franklin County Pride about what you can expect at their Pride festivities this weekend.
And we're very excited to host the Oscar-nominated actor Sam Waterston to talk about his incredible film.
Sad movie.
But a beautiful film, The Killing Fields, which will screen in Great Barrington this Saturday. I'm Monty Belmonte.
I'm Khalees Smith. We'll talk to you tomorrow on the Fabulous 413.